Right, okay, so this is going to be a little bit of whimsical presentation here because all I'm really doing, oh, by the way, let me restart. My name is Scott Zillmer. I am a map editor at National Geographic. However, I'm not going to talk about maps at National Geographic right now because I think you can all imagine what that must be like. People have mentioned it a few times during this conference. So I'm going to talk about my personal hobby of collecting what somebody has cleverly named toponymic tags. That was Jenny Runyon, by the way. Who gave me that cute little name. Basically, I wanted to collect license plates, and how did I get started in doing this? Well, at first I was a geographer, and I heard people talking about how many states they'd been to, and I thought, well, I can do better than that. I can talk about how many counties I've been to. I'm going to keep track of that. So I raised the bar a little bit and started keeping track of that. And I joined this little group that kind of has dues-paying membership to try to get like-minded people that are kind of crazy and talk about these kinds of things. And in the course of doing that, I met people, and I met a guy who did this kind of thing, and it was impressive with as many counties as he's been to. He's now been to the whole country twice, every single county twice, which is kind of frightening. But anyway, I met him, and he is also a license plate collector and kind of rubbed off on me over the years. And I said, I always appreciated license plates and loved looking at people's vanity plates and out-of-state plates and stuff, but I never bothered to actually have any of them. And he said, oh, it's really fun. You should join this group called ALPCA, the Automobile License Plate Collectors Association. So hey, why not? Sure, I'll start doing that. But you don't want to just jump right into that and just start collecting everything, because the real risk is that with a collection field this big, you can easily get lost in the massive world that it is and be broke in a hurry if you're a bit obsessive, and I am. So he's just recommended you want to pick a niche, just a tiny little section of the collectability possibilities. And I said, well, maybe I'd like to cross my career with my collection, and since I edit maps and I'm always talking about place names and memorizing them and doing all things like that, maybe I should focus on stuff that's geographical in nature. And I always love vanity plates, and I love seeing the wit that people can put on their plates, make something really funny with it. How about I look for places? And so I thought, maybe if I just try to collect state names or city names or something like that. So I started going to plate meets, and sure enough, the first couple that I went to, I was able to bring home a half a dozen different things that said a place name on them. And I thought, here, I think I have something. It turns out that it's actually quite unique, and now it's kind of sort of internationally famous amongst a really, really narrow focus group of collectors. So there's a few thousand people in these online communities, and most people from different countries know who I am because they'll see a place name and they'll think, oh, that's a place, that goes to Scott. So that's kind of how that ends up working. So in the end, I've kind of categorized most of the plates that are in the collection. There are about 1,000 of them. At this point, I've been collecting for about 5 or 6 years. And they kind of fall into 3 main categories: domestic cities, world cities, and states. I'm sorry, 4 categories, and countries. So state names, country names, and then cities. And a lot of domestic cities kind of started off. And so most of them are small towns. People want to tell you where they came from, where they were born, or whatever. But there's also, everybody loves big places. So, you know, as big and famous as places like New York are, I end up finding all different varieties of people who like to say New York because they love the place. They're from there, they just romantically are in love with the place, and they're from all over the country, obviously, and there's 100 different ways you can refer to New York City on your plate. You can do nicknames, you can do abbreviated versions of it, you can talk about parts of New York, other parts of New York, still other parts of New York, and other parts of New York. But then there's also other big major cities of the country that you'll find that there's lots of options. I've seen probably 100 different Phoenix plates. I don't need to keep them all like I kind of do the New York ones. But other big cities across the country that you might recognize. Not quite so big a city, but this was actually my wife's plate, so I felt obligated to include it in this presentation. So there's that one. Other medium-sized US cities, continuing on down the line, and this is just a nice little tip of the iceberg. Smaller cities, yet you might still recognize. Even smaller cities that some of you may not even recognize. Other really fun ones that place in Nevada that maybe you know or have heard of. And other ones that kind of cross genres too. So I've had a lot of offers to buy this plate from Chevy guys because automobile license plate collectors, they overlap a lot with car collectors and classic car collectors, so a lot of Chevy guys want this plate, but no, it's a city in Maryland. Here's a city in Virginia that you might recognize, another city in Virginia, another city in Virginia and Maryland and a lot of other places, and oh, maybe in Austria too. So this one I don't know what to put in. I have file drawers at home, and one for domestic cities and another one for world cities, and this one kind of alternates and goes back and forth. So instead of showing you 1,000 different pictures of different license plates that get really boring, I thought, well, maybe just one little deep dive and to give you a sense of just kind of some of the stuff that I have. So if you've ever heard of the online game called Sporkle, where it's just like there's this random category, and how many things can you type in 50 seconds that fit the category? So I thought, let's take a page out of the Sporkle dictionary, and we will say cities in the US that start with the letter S. So I have that one and that one and that one. It's actually a city in Louisiana. It's not just my name. And that one and that one. And now I live in Silver Spring, Maryland, so that one's appropriate. And you know, they just kind of keep going. Small city in Wisconsin, not far from where I grew up. There's actually a city called Spring in Texas. You might not recognize a Minnesota city with that name. Small city in Illinois. I know a guy who was born in that city, so I bought, this was a pair, and I bought the whole pair, and I kept this one for myself and gave the other one to my friend who grew up there, so that was kind of fun. But then there's all kinds of world cities, and so big famous cities that some of you may have heard of. So it's really fun when you see plates like this, you think, oh gosh, you know, this person was from Ghana, that's really cool, and now I have their plate. And boy, somebody loves Kazakh cities, and that's really cool. This one looks like it came out of Beirut because it's all beaten up, and I really love it. And I've seen other ones in much better condition than this one, which I think I bought for about $2 or something like that because of the condition. But I don't want the nice ones. I like the ones with character. Some people spend extra money to buy mint condition plates, and I don't want that. I want these beat up things that actually shows that the intent of the user was to have this thing and love it and drive around on it with drive around on their car with it and just use it. And I want to show that in my collection. And then there are other Arabic places, and some that don't even quite fit on the license plate. But you know, Edinburgh is a good one to have, and I have some other Scottish ones too. I hope they're in here. But here's another one, and this is also, I just learned recently, a neighborhood here in Norfolk, so that kind of doubles up as a world city and a local name. Here's my other Scottish one I was thinking of, and places in Turkey and the West Bank and Switzerland and Russia and Idaho and Kenya and all kinds of fun, famous world places. The list kind of just goes on and on. Kind of hard to read Toronto there on that Kansas Heartland plate, but that's it. So another fun category that I found is kind of more fun for me is every time I see one of these that I don't already have, I kind of get really excited and spend way too much money on them. Countries of the world. It's so simple, so just wholesome that I just see something like that, and whenever it's spelled perfectly, I just get really excited. So I actually have a friend who made this one for me. He lives in Arizona, and he said, is there anything that you'd like? I have a spare truck I can just register plates to, and I'll just send it to you. So that's where this one came from my friend Dean down in Arizona, and he's done that for me a number of times. But some of them I just find on eBay and just buy them or other online places and pick them up. Sometimes it doesn't always fit. Some states used to have a 6-letter minimum, or a 6-letter maximum rather, on their plates, so you squeeze on there what you can. Really often you'll see plates that say Greek or Mad Greek or Greek Girl or something like that. I don't want any of that stuff. I don't want to know what the person's identity was like. I just want to know where they were from. And so this one, if you know license plates, the letters should actually be red. They painted over that with blue for some reason. I don't understand, but it is a legitimate plate. And then some older stuff. And a lot of Iraqi veterans have asked me if they can buy this from me. But I said, no, it's from 1982. It doesn't have anything to do with being a veteran in Iraq. It's just somebody who thought about Iraq long before the rest of Americans did. And I think I have about 7 or 8 Japan plates. That's a really popular one. Here's one that you don't expect to see very often. But somehow in Alabama, somebody from Laos decided to get that. It was available. But yeah, New Zealand, Norway. I guess did I put all of my countries in here? It seems like it. No, I didn't. But there's some great ones, and obviously a big part of the collection are names that aren't perfect. These are some of the cream of the crop. Some of them have it spelled wrong for some reason because somebody else already had that, or they put a number at the end of it because they're the third person who wanted it to say Panama on their plate, something like that. But here's another one from Dean in Arizona. So the countries is a lot of fun, and then one country in particular. There's a lot of references of, but trying to find a plate that just simply says USA from whatever state is an awfully difficult proposition. But so it's kind of a current goal of mine, or current collecting goal of mine. I haven't counted, but I think I probably have 35 or 36 states right now with a USA vanity, where it just says USA or USA 1 or some sort of thing similar to that. So I'm currently working on, at some point, maybe by the end of my career, I will have a full 50 US states all saying USA on them, and I can run a flag or something like that. But having all these things is kind of fun, but what also gets kind of fun is when I can kind of take one thing and put it with another thing, and then you can smile. So I have Havana, Cuba, and other places where I've got the city and the country, and you just put them together and make cute little pairs and send them off and smile to somebody who might be from there. Strangely, Quetta and Pakistan, noticeably, Pakistan is an 8-letter country, and New York is one of the few states that actually allows 8-letter vanities. So if you have an 8-letter state name or an 8-letter country name, and you're from one of the 4 states that actually make 8-letter vanities, let me know, and I would love to order stuff. Because there's all kinds of fun ways to make those. So there's all various combos and things like that. Okay, other fun stuff. So over the years, you start collecting place names, and you run into something, and then you run into something totally different, and yet still the same. So some of these are just so much, how in the world does that kind of weird combination happen? And I run into these things on eBay a couple of years apart from each other. I forget that I even have it. I go to put it in my filing cabinet, and right next to the other one that says, oh, look at that, I forgot I had that. So now I have 2, and now I have 2 of these, and now I have 2 of those. And if you don't know, this is the Welsh name for Wales. And other small cities around the world where I just happen to have, here's one of my favorites. Now, who would get that twice? It happens to be a county in Idaho, if that's why it's a place name, so I have it. But Gem 1 on a Saskatchewan plate, maybe they were from Idaho. I don't know, maybe the same for Oregon, but what an incredible little coincidence. County names, things like that. The Miami 5, maybe a little bit less surprising. Oh, there's the red-lettered Illinois plate I was just talking about. So some of the things maybe a little bit less surprising. Some of them here, another city in Virginia, by the way. 2 different South Korea options. So we have just, things keep coming up all the time. Different states, different time periods. It's a whole lot of fun when you kind of find them in the same place, but years later, or in a totally different place and unexpected. I guess they just keep going. I thought it was fun to show as many duplicates as I have. But then there's also interesting stuff like this one where you have the Italian name for the city and then the anglicized name for the same city. So that's kind of cool, and completely different time frames on these as well. And here again, the Italian name and the English name for the same place. So another, probably the more visible thing that I have that seems to get a lot more traction amongst plate collectors is this thing here. So this is a state name spelled out on another state's plate, or even on the same state's plate, one for each state. And so these guys have been, because it's a whole collection, it's complete, you're not missing anything. With all the cities and all the countries, you'll never have everything. So I can't take every country in the world and lay them all out, 195 different plates, one for each country. Nobody's ever gonna make a plate that says Sao Tome and Principe. So I have the 50 states. And so it's a nice, beautiful little collection that I can put together up on big wooden boards. And stand next to it and get an award for it. And everybody in the plate community goes, wow, that's cool. You got one for everything there. And they fit all nicely square on this board, and it looks great. So this was actually a picture from this past July, where I displayed it at they have an actual conference, an actual annual convention where plate collectors get together. Jonathan knows, he was there. And they offer display awards, and their walls are absolutely covered with displays that are literally 20 feet high and 40 feet long, some of them more modest like mine, where we just kind of show off the stuff we have. And so I'm enjoying showing off stuff digitally. I also do it in real life and show people these things and arrange them, and it's a whole heck of a lot of fun for guys like me. Okay, cool, other stuff. So this talk was originally given to a bunch of names people, toponymic experts, and so I wanted to be able to show them that sometimes I have plates that have changed names, and sometimes, yay, right now I have the new name for this mountain, and uh-oh, I have an old name now too, if you don't know that Barrow has recently changed to Utqiagvik. And then I have other really old historical types of names, things that still a place, still people know where that is, and that one too even shows up on a lot of our maps these days, although that might be changing. You might not see this name on a Nat Geo maps too much more in the future. And other old German names and things like that. One of the things that I love the most about vanities, though, is people get really creative, and there's a lot of really smart and witty people out there. And since BOSTON was already taken, I'm sure, in Kansas, somebody did this one. And somebody thought Detroit was kind of cool if they couldn't get their original first spelling. And somebody from the town of Woodford couldn't fit all of those letters on a license plate, so they get creative and they shorten and abbreviate. And some people are really clever with pronunciations and phonetics and things like that. Other people get really creative with the separators. Jonathan showed some plates a little while ago that actually use symbols in their plates. Well, this one uses a symbol as if it were a letter. and you have a city in Michigan. And here we have, I actually bought this plate, really spent way too much on it, but my wife and I honeymooned in Kona, and we got married in California. And so this was too good to pass up. So $100 later, it was mine. And yeah, I had to show it to my wife as an anniversary gift for me, essentially, because she doesn't let me put plates up on the wall unless I carve them into artwork. So this one just has to live in a filing cabinet. But other ways to cleverly use the initial letter. This is a Wayne State University license plate from Michigan. My friend Roy actually got this on his car and gave me this copy because you'll see in a little while what Wisconsin connection that he was kind of building off of. This was my own plate right before I moved out of Wisconsin. I thought I didn't have any Packer plates from Wisconsin, and everybody likes them. They always want to buy them. And I thought, well, I've never gotten one because this yellow, ugly yellow plate would look terrible on my bright red car. But I got it anyway, and I just kind of kept it in the glove box and never put it on my car. But still, being able to use the G, and if you don't know, the University of Georgia uses the same shape G for their actual sports team's icons, so that's doubly clever. The guy who made that was really smart. Okay, so this is an old presentation, so this is just me saying, hey, National Geography Bee is coming up. Well, it's past now, you missed it, but this will be fun. We can do some bee questions. Archaeologists unearthed the ruins of Knossos on which island in the Mediterranean Sea? Anybody? Yay, good job. Although he did not succeed in finding the Northwest Passage, which British explorer sailed near a large island that now bears his name? Baffin. Very good. This is a smart room. What volcanic mountain is sacred to the followers of Shinto? Fuji it is, another New Mexico, although for some reason when they did the vanity plate, they cut the symbol out of it on this one, and I don't know if you could request that. You can request it, because I've seen other ones where they have two of them and one on either side. Very good. Today I learned that the Chianti district, which is famous for its wine production, is in which of Italy's regions? Tuscany it is. Well done. I used to have swag, and I would bring out swag for the people who got them. Sorry, I didn't. I don't have any today. Okay, so another fun game with the license plates, guessing game. No prizes here, but can anybody guess what these cities all have in common? NACIS host cities. Thank you. Very good. These are all the NACIS host cities that I happen to have in my collection. Where's your swag? I'm sorry. See me later. I'll try to hook you up with a National Geographic hat or something. Yeah, NACIS t-shirt. I don't have, of all the things, I don't have a Milwaukee plate. I've been looking and looking and looking. I've seen some. I know they exist. I just have never been able to get my actual hands on one. So if anybody ever comes across Milwaukee, let me know. Norfolk. Now I need one that says Norfolk. Okay. Anybody get what this is? The state of Tennessee. So of all the things that have been spelled cleverly in a different creative way, this is probably the most common one that I've ever seen. I have probably a dozen different ways, vanity plates, that spell Tennessee out in one strange way or another. Here are just 4 examples of ways that people come up with Tennessee and Tennessee and Tennessee and so on. And they just keep popping up. Apparently it's popular to spell that long state name in a bunch of different ways. This is a place name. Can anybody figure out what place name this refers to? Cape Town, the Republic of South Africa. As soon as I saw that RSA, I had to, oh, that's got to be South Africa. What in the world can CTN be? And it took me another 2.5 seconds to finally get to that. But I bought the thing, and my wife saw it, and she said, what the heck is that? Why did you buy that? And so she was stumped, and so I thought, this is a good guessing game. You guys all did really well. This one's pretty easy then. This one might be a little bit hard. On a Montana plate, it's Helena backwards, right? So obviously somebody else had Helena forwards, and they thought, I'm from Helena, and I'll be darned if I'm going to be denied. So I'm going to just put it on there backwards. And there are some people who happen to just see forwards and backwards stuff kind of just instantly. I'm not quite there, but I get there after. What in the heck is that? Yeah, this one almost. Yeah, you can see it in the rearview mirror. Here's another one. What's this? Omaha, thank you. I already showed you. I kind of gave a spoiler earlier. I said the Omaha plate was my wife's plate. Well, she's from Omaha. I'm from a town called Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And so together, this is a portmanteau of our 2 hometowns. This one is a little trickier. Altoona. Of course, most people know Altoona, Pennsylvania, but Altoona, Wisconsin is actually a bedroom community of Eau Claire, Wisconsin. My mom and dad were born into a house in Altoona, Wisconsin. And they went to Altoona High, graduated from there. So when I bought this plate for a cheap little $5 fee, I showed it to my dad and he said, "Oh, I remember seeing that plate driving around town." I said, "Really? Are you kidding me?" 20 years later or something like that, so 15 years later. So that was pretty nice. One other cutesy little thing that I do every once in a while is I'll stand in front of a city name with the actual plate that I have. Look what a dork I am. I have a plate that says the same thing as the city sign. I like to do stuff like that. I do a lot of other things with license plates, and don't just collect them, but I have probably 100 different driving and spotting games and photographs and things that I do. One of the other things that I do that's a totally different talk that I probably should have given here today is crafting. So I'll cut shapes out of plates and make them as wall designs, sell them to give them to friends, sell them to friends, sell them to anybody who wants them really, but I don't really have enough time to make an Etsy store. So I do stuff like that. This one was one of my favorite ideas. Each county of Wisconsin carved out of a different Wisconsin plate and then jigsaw puzzled all the way across the shape of the state. The thing weighs about 60 pounds, but so I did that. And after having seen some of this type of work that I've done for other states, including Maryland and Georgia, and I had this guy here said, "I've seen a lot of your work and it's really detailed and I want it. Can you make me a map of Mexico, just like you did your Wisconsin counties?" "Sure. Do you have the plates?" He said, "I have the plates. I'll send them to you." So he asked me to quote this, and if you could see the detail, each of the states of Mexico is carved out intricately from that Mexican state's plate. And I'll tell you, Mexico uses heavy steel for a lot of their plates, and it's really hard to cut. But the job got done, and $1,500 later, he had his map. The last thing that I'll introduce is that I also run a daily vanity plate blog once a day, Instagram and Facebook. So if you think this kind of stuff is funny, give me a follow there, and you'll see every single day a new little post from me trying to be witty and clever and talking about other people's cleverness using their license plates. And I leave you with a picture of the back of my car from when I lived in Wisconsin and from when I live in Maryland now. Thank you very much.